Hello, everyone. Grayson Geiler here with SES Services. Weekly, I like to get a topic out of the financial media and go a little bit further into depth in a video. This week, we're going to talk about CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. Okay, so this week is going to be a little bit different. I'm actually going to ask you to share this video with friends and family, anyone you can think of, because I think this is a very serious concern. Central bank digital currencies need to be understood by the average citizen. Now, we have written about this several times in the past. Go back to our sesweb.net if you'd like to read what we have written about it in the past, all the way back to December of 2020. Cryptocurrencies, most people have heard of Bitcoin, have become quite an enigma over the last few years. A lot of people have gotten rich off of it. People have lost fortunes off of it. Recently, a lot of cryptocurrency billionaires have shown up dead in a mysterious situation. So it's quite the enigma. Before we talk about the central bank digital currencies, let's talk a little bit about the crypto itself that really started this thing. Again, Bitcoin is the kingpin of the cryptocurrencies. And when you look at the basic technology, it's very intriguing. I mean, it's an open ledger, meaning there's not one central control hub like we have with the US dollar in the Federal Reserve, or the Bank of England with the British pound, and so on and so forth. So the technology is quite exciting when you look at the blockchain technology. Blockchain is an information following technology that is not exclusive to currencies or cryptocurrencies. Blockchain technology can follow a bushel of corn harvested in Nebraska all the way through the feed yard, what cattle are eating it, all the way to the steak section at Fry's. Blockchain technology is amazing and can really revolutionize the efficiency of a lot of our supply chains. So it's not exclusive to cryptocurrencies. It's involved in cryptocurrencies, and this is where we really originally found out about it. Now, the Bitcoins are not cancelable or controllable by individuals or entities like the central bank. And just to be clear, I am not doing an advertisement for Bitcoin. I'm just making sure that we understand some of the basics of the intriguing part of cryptocurrencies. There aren't any borders or conversions or monetary regulations with Bitcoin. You can send Bitcoin to Auckland, Australia with the click of a button. No, there's no intermediary, there's no Chase Bank making it happen for you. So it is a wonderful tool for economic freedom. I have some challenges with it. And I'm not specifically talking about Bitcoin. I'm talking about cryptocurrencies in general. The fluctuation of the valuation has been absolutely wild. I'm sure if you've been watching the financial press over the last year and a half, I mean, you really realize that people going bankrupt over this. Bitcoin has a very intriguing concept of a limited supply. There's only so many Bitcoins that could ever exist. But I could create a Bitcoin 2 and do the same thing. So that is one of my biggest questions about the Bitcoin, about the crypto space, that no one has been able to answer for me. So it clearly could be a lack of education on my part. Again, I'm just trying to go through to make sure we understand some of the basics of crypto. It's not going to function as a full monetary system. Nobody is borrowing and lending Bitcoins. It's really turned into a lot of a speculative vehicle. I'm not saying it's going to zero. Maybe it goes a lot higher, but it's turned into a speculative vehicle that Wall Street is really trying to corral and just make one of the tables at their casino that they're taxing and in charge of. But that's the basics of, or conceptually some of the basics of cryptocurrency. The problem comes in when the central banks realize some of the technology that's involved in these cryptocurrencies, and they want to make their own cryptocurrency, and they want to make a digital dollar. So they would actually, rather than that open ledger, they would have a closed ledger. They are strictly in control of. And here's a very, very important point that people need to understand, because I've heard this advertised by some people that would like to see insiders that would like to see a central bank digital currency. They say, well, most of what you do is digital already. Well, yes, it is. However, what they're talking about with a central bank digital currency would be a direct liability of the Federal Reserve. There would be no Chase Bank. There would not be your local credit union. There would be no customer service that you could call. There's no intermediary. You directly have a currency issued by the Fed to you. So it's a different version of digital. So don't allow people to sell you on that. It's absolutely, let me rewind a second and set the table, because the reason I'm going through this and the reason I'm asking you to send this to other people is because this should never happen. We should not allow this to happen. This would make George Orwell's skeleton blush in the grave, the type of totalitarian control that the central bank would have over us. I'm not a doomsdayer. I think it's likely that we put a stop to this, but I'm trying to get awareness out there so people understand what's going on. With these central bank digital currencies, they can put an expiration date on your money. The Chinese tried to roll this out for the Olympics, and it was a smashing failure, which is good news. Your money could have a limited number or type of items and services it could purchase. You could be issued a digital currency that, well, we think you're a little bit overweight, so you can't buy a cake for your cousin's birthday with it. You can't. We're not allowing it. Your money could be frozen, seized by a regulator. Think about the Canadian trucker rally. It was an ordeal for the Canadian government to try to get assets frozen for those people, because they had to get a bank to comply. Well, if it's the central bank, it's just that's really easy for them to freeze your assets on a moment's notice. Your money could be taxed. Imagine your bank account at Chase. If they just started taking money out of it because they wanted to, well, you would move your money. But if you've got an account with the central bank and there is no alternative, you can't move your money. You have no alternative. So they could tax it, they could charge fees, they could have a running negative interest rate, which in effect would be just like an expiration date, because you're not going to let your money just sit there and erode. You would go spend it. Your money could be controlled, prohibited geographically. They could tell you can't go overseas, maybe even within regions within the United States. They could control geographically when and where and what you're spending your money on. You would have absolutely no economic freedom. You would have no privacy. You could be completely controlled. And I know that sounds doomsdayish, because it is. If the central bank does this, it is a brave new world for America. Again, I think it's very likely that it's not going to happen. When you take a look at other central banks around the world that are trying to do this, the Nigerians, and that's a big economy. There's so much oil coming out of Nigeria, and the population has exploded over the last couple of decades. You're talking about, I think it's close to 200 million people now. And that's a legitimate economy. And the central bank tried to do one of these digital currencies, and it's been a smashing failure so far, which is great. People trying to demand cash, people buying gold, using crypto, meaning the Bitcoin type cryptos. So it's not going well so far, but all the central banks are talking about it. We've talked about it repeatedly. We've kind of had it on the back burner and said, you just need to be aware of it. But the Biden administration put out an executive order last month in March. I suggest everyone goes and reads it, because it's very ambiguous, which isn't a surprise when we're talking about an executive order, the government giving itself more power. very ambiguous, but it just talks about how, we have to save the people and we have to save the climate. Absolute ambiguous nonsense when we're talking about a functioning monetary system. So it's scary. But again, and I don't know what your political affiliation is, and that's not the discussion here. Obviously, Ted Cruz and DeSantis in Florida are very controversial guys. Both of them are very outspoken against this digital currency, which is a good thing, even if you don't agree with the rest of their politics. There's a congressman out of Minnesota that's trying to put some legislation out there to stop the central bank from continuing. But it's in the works to a degree. It needs to be stopped. Again, I am asking you to get the word out if you can, and if there's enough pushback. Listen, they're not going to detonate the U.S. economy in order to initiate this. It's not going to happen. They would try to initiate something like this in a time of crisis, and that's pretty substantiated now. I mean, I think everyone realizes it's emergency time that the government tries to make the changes that they want to see happen, and we don't really have an emergency going on. That doesn't mean we can't have one, of course. But it's a very serious situation. So I'm suggesting use cash on a regular basis. Nearly half of the transactions in America that are less than $50 are done in cash. That's great news. How are the central bankers going to stop that? They're not anytime soon. I'm saying let's hang on to that economic freedom. Nobody knows where you are spending your money if you're using cash. Nobody can control it. That is a good thing. When you look at some of the comments of the central bankers around the world over the last couple of years, and again, the articles I've written about it, go to sesweb.net. The articles I've written about it reference exactly that. So you can see the quotes of some of the central bankers that they don't want you to have that economic freedom. And, of course, we're cherry picking the worst of the comments over years. So it's not a complete trend yet. And that's why I'm trying to get this news out here. So please pay attention. Please send it out to lots of other people. Use cash when you can. Lots of times I get it. You have to use a credit card and you don't have a choice. Buy some gold for sure. Everyone should own some. If you have the wherewithal, I'm not going to tell you not to play in the crypto game, the Bitcoin game. I just have a tough time getting my arms around it. But there's obvious, as I was talking about earlier in this video, there's obvious economic power within the decentralized crypto concept. So I'm not poo-pooing it at all. But that's my talk for this week. Again, please send it out. If you need some help from us for your financial situation, like to sit down just for a no obligation consultation, reach out to us. Here's our information. Smash that like button, subscribe to our channel, forward this video to other people so we can make sure that we keep the economic freedoms that we have. Hey, thanks a lot for your time. Hope to see you again next week.